Welcome to Marketing in Your Car, the podcast for funnel hackers everywhere. You are now part of a small group of underground entrepreneurs who are trying to change the world through the products and the services that we believe in. But because we don't rely on venture capitalists, we don't have financial safety nets. So we have to do things differently. We have to do things smarter. We do that through an art and a science that we call funnel hacking. Now, this podcast will give you a glimpse at the daily life of a funnel hacker. So let's get started. Hey everyone, this is Russell Brunson. I want to welcome you guys back to Marketing in Your Car. Now, it's funny, I get people all the time that ask me what microphone I use to get this amazing audio quality. And it's just my phone. I have no microphones. I just hold it and I talk into it. I figured if I had to get a microphone set up, I never would have done it. I just want to be able to do these whenever I want to, whenever I want. So I need the least, most simple, easy setup possible, and that's how we kind of did this, which is really, really cool. Excuse me. And I actually just got a brand new iPhone. So this is my first time recording on this new iPhone, which I'm kind of excited about. So with that said, it snowed last night. If you follow me on Snapchat, I may be killing Snapchat. I haven't decided yet, but it's kind of frustrating, but it's also kind of fun. So maybe I'll move over to Instagram stories or something. I don't know. But we went, half my kids were out in the snow playing, and then my Nora and me were in the hot tub, which was really fun. And then the kids wanted the fireplace on, so I ran in my bare feet in the snow, turned the fireplace on, and anyway, it was some good times, but I survived it and lived to tell the story. So anyway, today is an exciting day because today is webinar day. We are doing a webinar. I was just checking the stats. We have over 4,500 people registered. What? Which is going to be exciting. And it's funny. We're getting towards the end of the year now, and I want to kind of share a message that'll loop back to the beginning of this year. For those who have been listening to the Marketing Your Car podcast, if you haven't been, go and binge listen to all of them and catch up, because there's some important things you're missing. No, just kidding, but kind of. Well, there was a podcast I did, I think it was in January, because I was driving home and it was snowy as well. And it was called, I think it was called The Business Model for the Next 12 Months. So if you go to marketingyourcar.com and just like search on the page for business model or something like that, or 12 months, it should pull up and you listen to it. But I walked through a challenge I gave to everyone to basically do a live webinar every single week for the next 12 months, and it would transform your life and it would transform your business, and it'd be amazing. And what's interesting is that as I've been saying that over and over and over again, very few people have. Surprise, surprise. But the people that have are doing some amazing things. And some are speaking funnel hacking live. Some are doing different things. One of them, I'm going to brag. I hope they don't mind. I'm sure that they'll probably listen to this. But Brandon and Kayla and Poland are examples of people who just, every time I'm like, hey, you should do this, they just do it. And it's amazing. And last month, and they're in the weight loss space. They sell a $147 product. And you might think, well, how much can someone make doing a webinar a week, every single week for a year? And I tell you, it compounds. It's this compounding interest game. I remember some famous guy said something about compounding interest. It was really cool, but I don't remember the quote nor the actual concept behind compounding interest. I only know how to sell stuff, but it's the same thing, I think, because it compounds. And just to kind of put in perspective, when I met them at Funnel Hacking Live, they were doing about $100,000 a month. That was in March or April, whenever Funnel Hacking Live was. Then they joined the inner circle and they kept doing it, and they kept compounding. And November, I actually sent an email out the other day, and I was like, yeah, they did almost $500,000 in November. And Brandon messaged me back. He's like, what? He's like, dude, we passed $600,000 in November. So I want to put it in perspective for you. $600,000 selling a $147 information product in the weight loss industry. Like, that's the power of what we're talking about, this compounding interest, this compounding effect of consistently doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I've shared this with my friends, people that are successful. I had one friend, I won't mention his name, but a great marketer and super cool guy, and his company's been stuck at about $3 million a year for a couple of years, which is funny because, like, for some reason, like, $3 million, I was stuck at $3 million a year for a long time too. Like, that was like my sticking point. I think there's different sticking points. Like, for me to break $1 million was really hard. It took me, like, I think it was like 4 or 5 years in a row. I was trying to break $1 million from January 1st to December 31st. And I missed it multiple years in a row by like a couple, by a couple tens of thousands of dollars, like $20,000 or $30,000, something like that. And I was just like, there's some mental block. And after I broke that, then like I shot to 3 million. And I stuck at 3 million for a long time. I could never really break through that. In fact, I broke through it at one time. when we built a big company up and we had a huge staff, but our profits were horrible. And then we shut that down, and I was stuck at $3 million again for another 3 or 4 years, like just consistently. We could not break that mental barrier. And what changed it for me was that transition from selling a lot of different products, because that's like the mindset of marketers, is like, I've got to create the next new thing, that's how I make more money, to how do I make something consistent that I just keep pushing people through. And for me, it was the webinar, and we did the webinar, and I committed to our team, because everyone, it's funny, when we launched Clickfunnels, a lot of my friends, and I saw this in forums or in Facebook groups, people were like, oh yeah, this is, Clickfunnels looks cool, but like it's Russell's flavor of the week, like I don't want to move my whole platform on there, next week he's launching the next thing. I was like, crap, like I have to show people that I'm serious about this. Like, this is the future. Like, this is my focus. And so a lot of my friends actually didn't sign up for 1.5 to 2 years into ClickFunnels because of that, because they're afraid that I was going to move on. And I was like, because that was my pattern. That's all of our patterns, right? Like, we do something initially to build a big audience of people, and then the way we start making money is we have to create new things to sell to them. And that's part of the strategy. Like, there's value in that. But what's more valuable is creating a front-end offer that's evergreen, that's consistent, that you're always driving people into. And there's a consistent message, consistent onboarding. Like, everyone comes to the same channel. They're buying the same thing. They understand the same concepts. And then as you're building your culture and your, like, all these other things come off of that, right? And so I started doing these things consistently, and I that was kind of what I promised Dylan and Todd initially. It was like, hey, this is gonna be my focus. Don't worry, guys. Like, I'm not chasing the next shiny object. We're gonna focus on this. And it took me, I think, 3 months before we figured out how to sell it right. We had multiple failed product launches initially, and then we figured out the webinar was how we were gonna sell it, and it worked. And we did the webinar over and over. And I did the webinar every week for almost a year. Probably more than that. Some days I would do 2 to 3 webinars in a day, which is a lot. I don't know if I can handle that nowadays, but when we first got started, that's what I was doing. I'd do a webinar, I'd get off, and then I'd do another one, I'd get off, and like if you do, those of you guys have done a webinar, like a 2-hour long webinar, like it drains you. Like, all your energy is going into it. And to do 2 or a couple times 3 in a day, like it was tough. But I was learning my message, I was finding my voice, I was understanding where people were getting stuck. I was perfecting it, going over and over. And the nice thing about doing it live too is it gets everyone on your staff and your team focused on this thing. You know, this last year, because we had so much success and the webinars working, we kind of shifted over to an automated webinar, and that's been running for most of this year. So I haven't been doing them live as much this year. But I paid my dues, so it's okay. For you guys, you got to pay your dues first, then you can. After you've done it 50 or 60 times live, then you're allowed to automate it. But so we automated a lot this year, and it's been good. It's been a consistent stream of money, but it hasn't been like this big focal point. And so we want to do one big last hurrah, which is happening today in a couple hours, to do the Funnel Hacks webinar. So we did a big push, and we got 4,500 people on it. And 4,500 people means we'll get 1,000 on the webinar. We consistently close 20%. That means 200. So I mean, we're looking at probably $150,000 to $200,000 live on the webinar, and then from replays we should double that. Gets us to 3 or 4. But then we're also have a big urgency scarcity. This is the last time we're doing this webinar. In fact, we're doubling the price of this offer and changing the whole webinar as a whole coming into the new year. And so there's a lot of built-in urgency and scarcity. So my guess, we probably end up with, I don't know, 500,000 or 600,000 from this in immediate sales, but then the lift from that is huge as well, because even people that don't buy, now they're indoctrinated into our process. They sign up for ClickFunnels, they start buying the book, they, like, all the other pieces start happening, and there's so many big benefits that come from the consistency of the webinar. So I just want to kind of circle back to what we talked about almost a year ago and get back to that. And like I said, my friend who's stuck at $3 million a year, I told him, I said, this is the model, man. You got to do a webinar every single week. He's like, I can't write a new webinar every single week. And I was like, no, you do the same webinar every single week. He's like, I can't do the same webinar every week. My audience will get tired of it. I'm like, exactly. That means you have to bring in new audience. And he's just like, no, that won't work. Like, we make our money by creating new things. And it takes me a couple months to create a new thing. I was like, yeah. And that's why you're stuck at $3 million, because you can't, like, it's just, it's a hard road to grow past that until you find. I know that's from a decade, 10 years of me trying that and launching and relaunching it. It's like, no, focus on creating a front end that becomes so amazing, so good, so powerful that you can consistently bring new blood in, that brings new blood in. Because that second half is that you'll find these businesses that are stuck at, $2 or $3 million a year. Usually after a year or two of that, they start getting atrophy and it starts shrinking. And there's usually a couple of reasons. One is the entrepreneurs burned out or creating new offers. Number two, the audience just starts shrinking. Like, I don't know what it is. We all get really good at bringing an audience initially, and then we have it and we stop focusing on that. We've got to be focusing consistently on new leads coming in. Like, it's the lifeblood of your business. Even if you don't want to grow, if you just want to maintain, like, it's essential to have. It's interesting. I've been listening to an old Kennedy, actually Bill Glazer course. It's called like Think and Grow Rich for Renegade Entrepreneurs or something like that. I don't know. I found it somewhere. So I've been listening to that, and the first thing he talked about these renegade entrepreneurs Think and Grow Rich is that they all have a focus on consistent new lead generation. No matter how good their business is doing, they're always focusing on consistent new leads coming in. And as I move into this new year, we're changing the webinar offer. We're changing the pricing. We're doing a lot of cool things inside of Clickfunnels and how we sell it. But I'm not going to be doing this webinar anymore. And so for me, it was like, well, what's the new horizon? Like, what are we shifting to? And I still recommend for 99.9% of all businesses, the focal point should be a front-end webinar. In fact, we will still have webinars that are selling on the front end. But for me, and I think I've talked about this with you guys before, like, my whole goal now, like, we just passed, it's crazy. This week we passed 25,000 active customers inside Clickfunnels. Like, that's not people who signed up and left. Like, that's people who are actively being billed happily. It's like, we never thought we'd get to that. Like, we made, like, we talked about that, like, oh yeah, when we have 100,000 customers, but we never thought that was a real thing. But, a little over 2 years in, we're at 25,000 active customers, which is crazy. And so for us, it's like, how do we expand that market? How do we get it bigger? And we can keep doing it through webinars, and we will. But I think for me and my business, and again, I'm not saying this for all businesses because I do not think this is across the board, but for Clickfunnels to grow, we'll continue to grow in the channels we are. People that have existing businesses that need a funnel, but the big opportunity for me and for our team is, it's funny because a year and a half ago when I started down this project for new customer acquisition, like, how do we keep fuel in the pump? It was funny, we were looking at I was trying to figure out, like, what's the offer I create so that all small businesses will start using Clickfunnels. And I was stuck for like 3 or 4 months, kept trying to think through that, trying to figure things out. And it's funny, and I may have told the story before. If not, it's worth telling again, so you guys get it twice. A year and a half ago, I joined Joe Polish's 25K group, and the night before the first meeting, I got invited by some cool people to come to this little dinner party, and had about 10 people in it. So I come to this dinner party, and Dave Woodward came with me to the trip, but he wasn't able to come to the dinner. And prior to that day, we were talking about, how do we create, like, is it a book I need to write, or is it a webinar? What do we need to do to penetrate and get all small businesses to start using Clickfunnels? And we're thinking through it. And it's funny how, like, when your brain's on something, how things just open up. So I'm at this dinner, and sitting across the table from me is Dean Graziosi. And Dean's someone who I've always looked up to. He's been on TV for 15 years selling his books. I think he's probably sold more books through direct response marketing than any other human on earth. The only person that might be close is Kevin Trudeau, but he's in jail right now, so I'm not going to work with him. But Dean's like the best, right? And he does things in a really clean way that aren't cheesy, that aren't like the dirty stuff. And I'm sitting across looking at Dean, and we're talking about, I don't even know what, something completely unrelated. And as we're talking, I had this like epiphany, or I don't know, I look at it probably more like a revelation from heaven, but who knows, whatever it is, like that thing where it was like, Russell, you are going to write a book. You are not going to be targeting small business owners. That'll take care of itself. You have to expand the market. And the book you're going to write is going to be called Expert Secrets. I own that domain, but I didn't know, like, that was never in my vision to write a book called that. The book's going to be called Expert Secrets, and somehow Dean's going to write an infomercial for you. And I'm sitting there listening to Dean talk about, like, his kids or whatever, and I was like, what? Like, did I just hear that right? Because I don't know if that makes any logical sense whatsoever. And then my brain comes back and it's like, doesn't need to. And I was like, all right, cool. So all I knew was that this little glimpse of, like, okay, you are writing a book. It's called Expert Secrets. It's gonna help you expand the market, and somehow Dean's gonna write you an infomercial. And I was like, okay. I'm like, do I tell Dean that like he's writing an infomercial for me? And he's like, no, don't tell him. He'll think you're weird. He'll think, it's like on first date, like, I think this is my wife. Should I tell her? No, don't tell her on the first date. Hold that in, right? That's why I kind of felt, I'm like, all right, well, So that was kind of the beginning of it. So went back that night to the hotel room and I saw Dave and I was like, Dave, I'm writing a book. It's called Expert Secrets, and the whole goal is to expand the market. He's like, I got chills. That sounds like, yes, when you do that. I'm like, all right. So Julie, who's my writer, helps me with my writing projects. I voxed her that night. I said, okay, Julie, write another book. She's like, you said you were never writing a book again. I'm like, I know, we're doing it anyway. I'm like, I'm wiring you some money. Give me the info again, like that night. So I wire her, and then I start writing this book, and we start going down this process, and I have no idea how all these pieces are going to go into place. I just know that it's supposed to, and so I just start running that direction. So we start running. Some of you might know I wrote the whole book, and then this summer I was editing it, trying to get ready for the publisher, and I realized I hated the book. So on Snapchat, I highlighted all 250 pages of it, and I deleted it. Messaged Julie, said, we're writing a new book. She's like, what? We just wrote a book. I'm like, yeah, we're writing the same book again, but this one's going to be way better. And started over, and have been working on that process. In fact, today I finished secret number 7, which is like chapter number 7. For some reason I have to name everything secrets. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just like secrets better than chapters, so whatever. And the book is like legitimately, I'm so proud of it. Like I can't even, I'm so proud of it. I'm so excited to share it with everybody. It's gonna be, I think it's gonna change a lot of lives and change how people look and view how we sell and how we influence and how we can affect people's lives. So it's going to be awesome. And then I'm in Genius Network. I go to that. Oh, excuse me. So let me rewind back. So this is the next morning after hanging out with Dean. I'm in Genius Network, and I love Joe and I love Genius Network. I just, the way that I'm not a super huge fan of like some of the way that. Anyway, I'll leave it there. So I was out in the hallway, and I was talking to Jason Fladlin, who's, Jason's a big mentor of mine. I've learned some things about belief that I was telling him last time I hung out. I was like, do you realize that these things you told me about belief, how they changed my whole life? And he's like, I don't remember talking about that. I was like, really? I was like, this was a really big deal to me. He's like, I don't remember that. I was like, anyway, it's funny. So I'm talking to Jason, and I told him, we had launched a certification program. I was like, yeah, we're shutting it down. He's like, why would you shut it down? I'm like, it's not working. Anyway, we kind of talked through it, and we're going to shut it down. And he's like, why don't you find some rock star to run it for you? And I was like, there's nobody that would, and I kind of just think like, if I could find the right person, then yes, I would do it. But I don't see that vision. And anyway, and then a couple days later, we're sitting in a room talking about like shutting down the certification program. And all of a sudden, I can't remember who it was. If it was me or someone else. Someone mentioned Nora. And like all of us in the room got chills. I was like, yes, she is the right person. She will take this to the next level. Nora is that person. And we called her up, begged her, and she came in and built a certification program. And what's interesting is the certification program, we're certifying all these amazing people now who are building funnels. I just pulled up, and Steven's looking through the office window. He's in his Santa hat. He's waving at me going crazy, saying webinar today. Anyway, so the certification program is certifying all these amazing people who are now going and they're penetrating, getting funnels into local businesses, which is cool because like I was trying to figure out how to get that, how to go that direction. It didn't make any sense. And now I know that those markets will be filled through the certification program, which is so cool to kind of now see the vision later. And anyway, so working on the book, go to the next Genius Network meeting, and like I went to the last one. I was like, I was not planning on re-upping because I was like, it's been good and I like it, but it wasn't what I needed right now in my business. And the night before the last meeting, Dean's like, hey, come over to my office. So I swing into the office. We talk for a little bit, and shows me his infomercial studio. I'm sitting in this thing. I'm like, this is where he's going to be filming an infomercial for me. But I'm like, but he doesn't know that yet. Like, how do I not awkwardly bring it up? Like, hey man, just so you know, you're building an infomercial in the studio. Like I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, so it's pretty cool. And then I was talking about like how cool it'd be to have him do an infomercial. I kind of just dropped it like as if it just came in my head. Not that I've been plotting it for a year and I knew it was going to happen someday in the future. I was like, oh yeah, so man, like that'd be so cool to have you do an infomercial. Like, what does that look like? And he's like, I don't do infomercials for people. And he's like, but I might be willing to do one for you. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And he gave me some good, cool compliments. I was like, that's cool. And then he kind of mentioned in bypass that night, like, hey, Joe Polish and I think about doing a 100K group. Like, would you be interested? And I joked, I'm like, if you help me do an infomercial, I would definitely be interested. And he's like, all right. He's like, I think we can make that happen. And it kind of left at that. And I was like, oh my gosh, that night I was all giddy. Like, this may actually happen. Like, there's now a path that this might possibly happen. And so the next morning at the 25K meeting, first thing Joe and Dean do is they launch, hey, we're launching a 100K program. And Dean's like, Brunson thinks he's in. And I was like, I'm in. And they release, they hand me an order form, I fill it out, and I join the 100K program. Because I'm like, I don't know the answer, but I know that this is the path. Like, this is somehow Dean's making me infomercial, and I just need to be closer to him. And so, and so that was kind of it. And now, 100K program, we had our first meeting a couple weeks ago. I think I talked to you guys about that. And what's cool is, like, at the meeting, he asked me if I would train for a little bit, and he's like, and he asked I asked, like, what do you want me to train on? He's like, well, what do you think would be the best for this audience? And I was like, I know it'd be best. And so I shared some stuff from the Expert Secrets book, as almost like a test to see how this audience would respond to it. And they went nuts, like insane. I was like, yes, the message is right. The book is right. And I told Dean, I'm like, my book's about that concept. And he was like, I want to help you with the infomercial. I was like, I want you to help me with the infomercial. And he texted me the other day. He's like, I think I have the perfect host for your show. And like, anyway, I'm like freaking out. Now this is happening. And so for me, like, the market expansion, is the book Expert Secrets, and it's using it through an infomercial. I mean, we'll be doing a normal book launch and pushing it through the channels we're good at. But I see a very clear vision of how we can use Expert Secrets to create the market, to get people to, because the hard thing with, like, a small business owner, like, let's say it's chiropractic, if I go in there, I'm like, I want to show you this thing called Clickfunnels. And he's like, all right. And I showed him, I'm like, look, you can drag and drop and move things all on the page. He's like, isn't that how all website builders work? Because he doesn't build his website, right? Like, it's the consultant that they hire, or it's the webmaster that does that. So for them, it's not a big deal. So the only way to get to them is to become the consultant, which is why the consultant program is working for us so well. And I was like, if we want to expand, like, we have to create people who are going to be using ClickFunnels. So how do I create somebody? I show them the value they have within themselves. I show them that they've got talents and hobbies and skills, and the thing that they goof off on the weekends because they love it could actually become a career for them if they understood how to structure it right. And as soon as I can convince them of that, which is the goal of the book, then they need ClickFunnels, the tool, to be able to actually implement it. And that's the magic. And so that's how we are going to be expanding our market, is that, and that's going to become our new front end. But it just, don't forget, or not, lest you're worried that I'm shutting down webinars. No, after they go through the book, the next funnel is the webinar. The message will be a little bit different. In fact, it's already been 21 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sitting in the parking lot freezing because I'm so excited with hanging out with you guys. So I'll just show you some more. So what's going to happen is they're going to get the book through radio, through infomercials, online, through all these different channels. We'll be pushing it. After they get the book, then there'll be a survey they'll take. The survey will identify what type of business owner they are, and then there's a different webinar based on each of those types. And that's the future of where we're going. At least I think so. It could definitely change in the next few months, but that's kind of what's happening. Dean may decide next week he hates me not doing an infomercial. I'll be totally cool with that. But so far, like I said, that's the direction I'm going. But for most of you guys, the book is a much harder direction no longer. And I think that for every one of you guys, I would say if you join Inner Circle, 99% of you guys, I'd say you need a webinar and you need to do it every single week. And you'd say, well, I want to automate it. I'd say, go back to this podcast episode, and I'd make them go back and listen to it and then say, after you have perfected your message, then you have my permission to automate it, but not before. And that's kind of the same thing I want to mention today, because it's been a year from now. And those who heard that message a year ago, if you've been listening, you could be in the spot where Brandon and Kaylin are, where you just did $600,000 in sales on a webinar in November. Or maybe you haven't done the webinar yet. And it could be both ways. There's a kid, I'm learning his story from like 4 or 5 people keep telling me. I haven't met him yet. In the ClickFunnels group, he's an 18-year-old kid who was a pizza boy a little while ago, and he learned the perfect webinar, and he did like, I don't know, 300 or 400 grand last month selling something through a webinar. And he's a young kid, the first time he's ever done it. But he did it, and he's doing it consistently. And that's what you guys got to do. So I'm asking you right now to recommit, because I don't want to have this conversation next year with you. The conversation I have next year with you is, Russell, I made so much money this last year. What should I do? And I'm going to say, come to Kenya with us. Let's build some schools together. But first, we got to get you to the spot where you can. And so the way we get you there is by having a consistent funnel. You're bringing leads in every single day, new blood into your business every single day. It's happening through a front-end webinar. And that's the model. So go back to marketingyourcar.com, search for, again, the next 12 months, or business model for the next 12 months, something like that, I called it. And listen to that and follow that like it's the gospel truth, because it is. And there's times for all these other funnels and all these cool things we're doing after you've acquired the customer. And what's cool is that you can focus on doing the live webinar once a week, and then the rest of the time you can focus on cool new products and services and things you can create for that existing audience. But all of your ad money, your time, your effort, your focus should be on getting new people in through one consistent message. And after you have that, then you can go back and create new things for those people. But that should be your focus. So there you go. This is maybe the longest marketing your car in the history of all time. We're 24 minutes and 15 seconds. Anyway, I'm going to bounce. I got some work to do. We have a webinar today. I have no idea what the numbers will be, but I'm excited to do it. And then retiring this message, which is kind of sad. I'm not completely retiring. I'm just definitely changing it for the new funnels to be very specific. The one, just for people wondering why, this webinar I talk about supplement funnels, which has been a double-edged sword. It's got a lot of people excited about supplements, but people who don't have a supplement, there's always this gap I have to bridge. And so the new version of webinars, and webinars plural, is we identify who they are. And if they're a retail store, we have a webinar showing them retail funnels. If they are an expert, we'll show them expert funnels. If they're an e-commerce person, we'll show them e-commerce funnels. And we'll be very specific, the funnels we show in the webinar, to the type of person who's listening. So that is what we are doing, because the first 2 years this has been brute force. So we try to get everyone with the best message we can create. And the second 10 years, hopefully, will be more like a sniper, where we craft the message perfectly for each audience. And it'll hopefully increase conversions, increase stick rate, decrease churn, and build the culture even better. So thanks everyone for listening. Appreciate you all. Have an amazing day. And I will talk to you guys all again soon. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the behind-the-scenes look at our funnel hacking projects. You can also watch the Funnel Hacker online reality show and watch us build and launch funnels live at www.funnelhacker.tv. If you'd like to come hang out with your fellow funnel hackers, come join our Facebook group at www.projectclickfunnels.com. Oh yeah, and don't forget, you can get a free MP3 player with the first 257 episodes preloaded at marketinginyourcar.com. Join us next time, and remember, you're just one funnel away from your dreams.